Hey, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of year. It's 10 games into the MLB season. We're going to jump in and do the MLB Power Rankings, a channel favorite, going 30 to 1, talking about each team, how their first week and a half has gone. Guys, it's quite a shakeup, honestly. There's a couple teams that had pretty big jumps. I don't tend to have massive jumps, but I think I've come around on a couple teams. A lot of concerns for some other teams. Other teams are kind of questionable at this point. Before I jump into what the obvious number 30 is, I'm just going to do the one birthday wish for me. It's my birthday today. If you guys are not a subscriber to the channel, we're trying to hit that 1,500. I really thought we were going to hit it by April. Didn't quite get there. But if you guys are not a sub, please smash that sub button, smash that like button if you are already a subscriber. Help this channel grow because I love hearing from you guys in the comments, etc., etc. We're going to jump right into it. At number 30, they did not move up whatsoever. I just couldn't do it. We had some excitement for the Chicago White Sox, an 8-1 win to kick things off. They end up losing to the Angels 2-1, losing to Minnesota 2-1, and then getting swept by their division rival. So 1-5 overall against their division. White Sox don't seem to have made too much steps forward, and I think this could be the one time we see a team go end-to-end last place. I wasn't going to move them up. They got a couple of wins, sure, but it's going to be a bleak season. We saw a lot of runs being scored against these White Sox. Number 29, I think I had them in that same spot before. It's the Colorado Rockies. They had a pretty rough outing this weekend against the Athletics, only taking the one win today. Just to avoid the sweep, they went and got swept by the Phillies midweek, and then they had a 1-2 series against Tampa Bay. So other than the Phillies, they did not have a lot of tough competition, only a couple of wins. Colorado is very clearly the worst team in the National League West, so I think it's going to be a long season. This bottom row, we have a couple of staples that I expect to probably be here the whole season. The rest of the board is pretty much up for grabs. Number 28, for me, if you watch my season preview videos, it's a little bit of a shocker. Maybe not for other people. Maybe not if you're a Pirates fan, and maybe not if you just assume this team is going to do what they always do. 1-2 over the Yankees, so they avoided the sweep today. Extra innings, 5-4 win. Very close to being swept by the Yankees. They got swept. Oh, they avoided the sweep in the Marlins to kick things off. So it was 3-1 against the Marlins, a team that I did not have doing very well. And the Pirates, I expect this team to take a step forward every year. And this year they just not doing it. So I'm going to start them off way down here. And the middle series of the week, they went 1-2 against Tampa. So Tampa had the benefit of playing the two lower teams. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Pirates. The Central Division, I thought, was a chance for them to take a step forward, and so far, not so good for the Pirates. A rough start, only a couple of wins. They did avoid sweeps, so I guess that is the one thing. They do have 3 wins, but long ways to go. The Athletics, I do have next at number 27. It's interesting. We saw one home series there in Sacramento, and when they played the Cubs, they ended up getting swept. They ended up giving up a lot of runs. I'm not sure if it's the team or if it's the ballpark or what's going on there, but number 27 for the Athletics, we saw some other things go out. So they do win the series against Colorado over this weekend. They lose to the Cubs 0-3 at home, and they started the season off going 2-2 against Seattle. So maybe when we're comparing apples to oranges, this is a team that has potential to move up. They had some shining series. I do have concerns about what this ballpark that they're going to play, and I do have concerns whether or not they really have a roster that's MLB worthy, so it's going to put them right now in the bottom. Number 26, I do have them moving up a few spots, and it's because of the start to the season, and I'm not going to give them a little credit. 3-1 against Pittsburgh, jump them on the board. They also go 1-1 against Atlanta over this weekend. The third rubber match got postponed. It was a 10-0 loss to a team like the Braves that had not won a game yet, so I do consider that somewhat impactful, and 1-2 against the Mets. So they end up going 2-3 against their own division, probably going to lose to the Braves, even though the Braves are a little questionable right now. Miami is set for a long season. They are in that rebuild situation. We did see some light, some offense, and they really seem to handle Pittsburgh Pirates, but again, it's bottom row. I don't really hold too much weight into it. right now. Number 25, they just came off their first series win this weekend, so it did kind of bolster their chances. But after watching them closely, getting swept by the Toronto Blue Jays, I do have a lot of concerns, especially with the bullpen of this team. They lose the opening series 2-1 against Philly as well. All of those games, I do believe they were winning. The bullpen just completely fell apart. There is some highlights of this team. CJ Abrams had a massive series. He's had a pretty good start. They have a lot of young talent. I don't know if they're going to stay here in this spot. But right now, I do think that is kind of where they are, just based on what we've seen. Number 24, a team that is potentially making a stand to go into that bottom row. And a lot of it has to do with, they lost, 3 games in a row, 1-0? Having trouble getting some offense. And then there was the one game where they put up 14 runs. So just overall, very interesting. 1-2 against Texas. They went 1-3 against Milwaukee over this past weekend. And they started the season 1-2 against San Francisco. So overall, so far, lost all 3 series. Cincinnati kind of falling behind the 8 ball. This division is going to be competitive. Seems like some of these other teams are doing better than I had thought they might, and we'll get to them in a minute. Number 23. This team has fallen a few spots from where I had them to start the season. 1-2 against Houston to start things off. And they kind of salvaged it, or fell it apart. And when I say start things off, it was this weekend. They played Houston this weekend. They had a chance to win the series, and I think they had a 6 or 7-1 run lead in this series, and then they end up, or in this game today, and they end up blowing that game. So 2-1 against the White Sox, 0-3 against the Cardinals. So the only series they win is against the White Sox, and at times we thought the White Sox might win that series. So there is a lot of concern right now in Minnesota. There is injuries already piling up. We haven't seen Royce Lewis really start yet. Byron Buxton hasn't been amazing or anything like that at all. Minnesota, to me, is kind of falling behind the pace that some of these other teams are coming out firing in this division. Right now, I have a lot of concern about that. Number 22, another team that I'm pretty concerned about, and we just finished watching them lose and get swept by the Giants. They were the last game to wrap up before the end of the day here. We still have the Sunday Nighter. If you're new to the channel, we always do this video before the Sunday Nighter, so we have Boston and St. Louis in a little bit. But 0-3 against the Giants, and then they went 1-2 against Detroit and 2-2 against the Athletics. So they started the season all right. There is a lot of concern for me with the offense, and that's what we talked about coming into the season. Is this offense going to get things going? So far, the pitching's been all right, but at times they haven't really held their own. 2-2 against the Athletics, that's okay. It's a division rival. You split game of 4, okay. But then to lose the next 2 series is going to be a little bit of concerning here. Detroit's that team that's the up-and-coming team. Seattle wanted to be that team, and to lose that series is a little bit concerning. So division, potentially wide open. We're going to talk about most of that in a little bit here. Number 21. Moving up maybe the most spots, quite a few spots on the board. I did have them quite low coming into the season, and they pleasantly surprised me this week. Honestly, led by the bat, what feels like a nuke bar. He's just been pretty amazing. 3-0, they start the season off with a 3-game win streak, sweeping the Minnesota Twins. Then they go to LA Angels, which they lose that series 1-2, and now they are 0-2 so far against Boston. So a little bit coming maybe back down to earth. Maybe this is a quick peak, and maybe I'm giving them a bit too much credit for beating Minnesota in that series. But the Cardinals so far have shown that they do have the offense. Maybe the depth of the rotation and the depth of the bullpen isn't quite there, and that's resulting in some of the losses that we're seeing now. But the Cardinals at least starting a little bit hotter, and we saw this last year, I guess. We did see them finish above 500. They did have some good times last year, so the Cardinals trying to be competitive. Number 20, maybe I'm going to get some heat for this, but I dropped the Guardians even more than where I had them to start the season, and I got some heat for that. But the Guardians have had somewhat of a rough start after, and I got to give them a little bit of credit here. They have had a massive road trip to start the season. All 3 of these series have been on the road. They did start the season beating the Kansas City Royals 2-1, a division rival, one that you got to be excited about. Then they go into San Diego, they get swept 3 games. Then they go into LA, play the Angels, and lose that series. So there is some concern. I talked about it in other videos, the depth of this rotation. To me, they took a step back from last year, and I thought they overperformed last year. But guys, it's a 9-game road trip. Maybe this is the bottom, and we're going to see them turn it around. But I want to see it right now. They're kind of falling in to what I thought they were going to be, so that's kind of why I have them where they are, where other teams are performing higher than I thought they would be. And one of those teams are the team that beat them in the LA Angels. And the offense for the Angels has been higher than I would have expected. They beat the Guardians, they beat the Cardinals, and now they beat the White Sox. Sure, they win all 3 series. They don't find any sweeps along the way. Maybe I'm giving a lot of credit to bump them so quickly up to 9th, and probably they're going to have a couple of teams. Maybe the Twins are underperforming, Mariners. Maybe one of these other teams finds some hot streak going. But right now, they haven't lost a series, so I had to give a little bit of credit there. And Trout is here. He hasn't really performed what you would think Trout to be, and so the fact that they were winning these series without Trout really playing massive baseball, wanted to give a little bit of credit there. But I don't know, Angels maybe to move them out of the second bottom row would have been a little crazy. That's probably why I didn't. Number 18, the Tampa Bay Rays, still the worst team on the board in the AL East. And they're coming off getting swept right now over this weekend against the Texas Rangers. So maybe they're in a position to fall. This is one of those teams. But at the same time, they beat the teams that they're supposed to. They beat Colorado. And they also beat Pittsburgh. So both those games, 2-1. Nothing massive. They're pretty much around 500 right now. Kind of on the fence of how they're going to do. And I'm excited to see how they start to do when they play the AL East. And one of those teams in the AL East that, to me, has performed pretty good. Also got swept this weekend is the Toronto Blue Jays at number 17, moving up a couple of spots. Getting swept by the Mets. They had a chance to win yesterday's game. They blew it. The bullpen blew it. Then today they had a chance to win it again. They lost by 1, 2-1, get shut out. It's okay. The Mets sweep them. They sweep the Nationals. We saw a chance where this is a team that we didn't see sweeps either way until, what was it, like August last year? So we've already seen it go both ways in the early going. And Toronto is that team. So far, the rotation has been great, absent the 1 start from Berrios. But the bullpen's been questionable. The offense has not really got going, and now they potentially are going to be missing Springer. What are the Jays really? It's kind of a middling team, potentially on the lower half, and that's exactly why they're at number 17. Number 16, this is the most falling team on the board. I think they were second or so coming into the season, and it's just been an atrocious start for them. They started 0-7 going up against the National League West with the San Diego Padres and the Dodgers. And then they went 1-1 against Miami Marlins. We saw a 10-0 win, but then we see them get shut out the very next game. We see Jurickson Profar get suspended for 80 games. So a lot of concern with Acuna already out, Spencer Strider already out, and now looking at this rotation, 4 out of the 5 guys, absent of Chris Sale, have less than 1 year of MLB pitching experience. Atlanta is in a place of concern, in my opinion. Sure, I have them 3rd in the division, but the other 2 teams seem to be at least building farther ahead than the Braves, and the Braves have to be concerned with how the season started. Sometimes when teams start like this, they just don't make the playoffs. And right now, that's kind of what the Braves are. I want to get ahead of the curve because, to me, there isn't really anything on this Braves team that shows that, sure, they should be a top 10 team right now, because even though some teams that they go 0-7, I wouldn't be as concerned right now. I do have that concern of the Braves. Number 15, I have the Orioles after splitting the series with the Jays to get things started. We saw a team that the offense was massive in that Jays series, and then they lose to Boston, and now they lose to the Royals. So back-to-back series losses. Pitching came into the season. We knew it was going to be concerned. Sure enough, it's kind of reared its ugly head for this team. At times, the offense has had opportunities to carry this pitching out, and they just didn't get it done. So right now, middling team, are they even in a playoff position? At this rate, they are not. And we want to see some of these young guys. They need to figure it out. Number 14, this team has impressed. Only 1 loss so far in the season. We just finished watching them sweep the Mariners. And now they sweep Houston. So back-to-back sweeps. think they're on a 7-game win streak. The series with Cincinnati, they win 2-1. And I knew one of those was a come from behind victory on, I think it was opening day. We watched it on the live stream. But the Giants, while they are what is that, 8-1, I'm wearing their hat, giving them credit, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. They do got 3 powerhouses in this division. We haven't seen them really play that team that is going to give them a run. I have Houston ahead of them on the board. A lot of it has to do with Giants started down here, Houston started up here. Houston, that was a stumbling point, and we don't always hold one series sweep, one series matchup too closely against each other. So Giants got to be excited. The offense has been performing, unlike last season. They have performed so far, but at times we saw it today, extra innings it took again, and we saw a lot of very close games against Cincinnati. Didn't keep a close eye on the Houston series, but I think they're clearly performing above expectations so far. So we got to give them a little bit of credit. Number 13, we do have those Kansas City Royals we just briefly talked about playing the Baltimore Orioles. And the Royals, they have a big win there against the Orioles. The matchup that we saw last postseason, they kind of kicked things off right exactly where they were last year. They had 2 series losses to get the season started against Milwaukee and against Cleveland. So that's 2 teams that are potentially playoff teams. Both teams were playoff teams last year. They played 3 teams now that were all playoff teams last year. So to be just around 500 after that, got to be all right. So far, the rotation has held up to what we expected. Royals need to figure it out, though. This division is not one that is going to be won by 500 team. 500 isn't going to get you into the playoffs. I don't think in the American League. That's why you kind of have them on the borderline here. And that is that. Number 12. We have the Boston Red Sox. And after going 1-3 to kick things off against Texas to start the season, they're now 2-0 against St. Louis, playing the 3rd game tonight. And having beat the Baltimore Orioles 2-1. So far they've played 1 division matchup, a team that they're going to be competing with all season, probably for the wild card spots. And they're up. A lot of people were on Boston coming in the season. I was a little concerned. And then we saw the Texas series, and I was starting to feel validated, but they've really definitely proven their case now, going 4-1 since that series, and we're going to be excited. I think they play Toronto next, which is going to be pretty exciting. I feel like they're technically pretty close on the power rankings board. This early in the season, it's definitely really close. Number 11, I do have the Milwaukee Brewers, and after getting absolutely trounced by the Yankees and starting the debate of the torpedo bat all across the MLB, they had what I like to think is a pretty decent bounce back. 2-1 against the Royals, and then 3-1 against their division rival, the Cincinnati Reds. And I gotta give them credit, because right now I had them in the top row coming into the season. Maybe I got a lot more concerned watching how the rest of the Central went and how their pitching rotation kind of went, especially in that Yankee series. And it wasn't technically solved so much going forward, but their offense is definitely a little bit there compared to what we saw in that Yankees series. But the Brewers, if they maintain what they did last year, and they so far have, going 3-1 against the Reds, if they just keep beating up on their own division, they'll be able to walk into the playoffs like we've seen them do year after year. So I'm not too worried about the Brewers right now. I still think they're on pace to be a playoff team. Whether it's division leader this year or a wild card remains to be seen. Number 10, I do have the Houston Astros, and I was prepared to move them down a little bit on this board, but we saw a little bit of a bounce back and a big comeback against Minnesota today, which made me change my mind. We saw them beat the Mets in the early going of the season, 2-1, and at the time I didn't think so much of it, but now after seeing how the Mets have played, how their bullpen has been, giving it a little bit more credit. So being swept in the middle there by the Giants, I haven't put a ton of weight on, but if you did watch my last Power Rankings video, they are down a few spots, and we see some concern, because I do think the bottom end of this rotation has shown some weakness so far this season. And I know that was coming into the season what they were going to lean on, hopefully, to take a step forward. And so far, we have not seen it. Number 9. I do have the Diamondbacks, and while their record maybe isn't worthy of 9, 2-2 against the Cubs to start the year. The Cubs had already played a couple of games in that situation. We see 2-1 against the Yankees. So after a powerhouse series, with the Yankees. That's all right. But then they follow it up with a 1-2 series with Washington. I would have loved to see him come in and build off a team that was down, coming off a sweep, getting swept. But to lose that series is concerning because this NL West, this is not a situation where you can afford to give up losses like that. You need to at least win 2 out of 3. When you're looking at the overall standings, they're in 4th because you know the Giants are ahead of them with only 1 loss on the year. The Padres had a hot start. The Dodgers are dodging. So at 9, kind of holding on to it. If we see another week of kind of what we've seen in the past few weeks, they're at risk of falling down into this middling row. And then once you're there, that's where it starts to be hard to start hopping teams. So you want to start winning when you can. Number 8. Sticking in the NL West, I do have the Padres. They did start off a lot higher, obviously. They were undefeated, one of the last undefeated teams, starting 7-0, sweeping the Braves, sweeping the Guardians. But at the same time, while that had them higher on the board, these teams fell down the board, which made the wins a little bit less. And then they end up going in and playing the Cubs. They lose that series to the Cubs 2-1 over this weekend. So when they start to play a team higher up on the board and they lose, while coming in the season, the Padres, we didn't really expect a 7-0 start, especially against the Braves team. So I think 8, pretty solid. Let's see what this team is capable of going forward. Number 7, got the Chicago Cubs. Just spoke that they just beat the Padres, right? We saw that they swept the Athletics in Sacramento. The Cubs are one of those teams that I did not think coming in the season that the hype was all there, but so far we've seen Shota Amagata. I'm saying that, I'm not forgetting his name right now, but him and Tucker have just been, Tucker's been everything that they've hoped for, and their rotation has delivered so far. Some of these top guys getting it done. So Cubs sweeping Athletics and Padres 2-1, and now Diamondbacks 2-2. So they've had a really tough start to the season playing the 3 NL West team, not even talking about the Dodgers series. And they're right there in the thick of it on top of the National League Central. It's going to be a product of Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and these guys being in it. I think that's going to work out in their favor going forward, of course. Should be on their way to a wild card, picking up wins along the way. Right now, Cubs are the team to beat in that division. Number 6. Coming into today, I did not think I was going to put this team here, especially because they got swept to start the season. But really, if you look at the games, if you watched any of the games against the Dodgers, they were right there in it. They could have easily taken one, could have easily won the series. They bounced back. I like to see this from a team that bounced back, beat Seattle 2-1, and then they sweep the Chicago White Sox this weekend, which is exactly what the team that is going to win this division has to do. Beat up on the White Sox, beat up on the other teams that are potentially down on it this year. And right now, I think Detroit is a team to beat in the American League. The American League is an interesting cat. It seems like the tides are shifting potentially in this league, except for maybe the Yankees. The Yankees are always in the conversation. But Detroit is going to take advantage. Flaherty coming back is a big part of that, and this young team coming up and guys delivering, like Kerry Carpenter delivering so far early in the season. That's been exciting. Number 5. I have the New York Mets, and maybe I shouldn't have them as high, but this was where it really got hard. Top 4 for me were pretty concrete. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe up in the air here. And with the Mets, they went 2-1. Or they swept Toronto 2-1 against Miami, and then they had a little bit of a rough start going 1-2 against Houston. So they're going 500 going into play Toronto. Found a nice sweep. Saw all around good baseball team effort when I was watching specifically with the Toronto series. So that was exciting. Juan Soto looks to be exactly what they're paying for, getting on base, getting hits, coming up in clutch moments. A lot of people make fun of him striking out early in the season in a key moment, but guys, this guy's going to pay mad dividends. And I think this bullpen is really underrated potentially. The one concern, of course, is going to be the starting pitching, but out of all the teams we really talked about, that every team so far does have concerns across the board. And right now, I think the Mets are going to benefit off the struggling Braves so far. They're going to be able to beat up on these two teams, so I do think they're on pretty much a course for the playoffs. So I think that is playing impact on their ranking right now. Number 4, I have the New York Yankees, and to me, they are by far the best team in the American League East. They beat the Pirates this weekend. Maybe could have had a nice sweep there. They swept Milwaukee to start the season. Had a little stumble. They lost to Arizona. I remember last year, the start of the season, they played Arizona and they really beat up on them. So maybe there's a little bit of payback there. But overall, the home run ball has been massive. Will Warren, who is supposed to be this number 5 guy, really slotting in. He's potentially one of their top prospects. He has not delivered so far. So without Garrett Cole, the rotation does seem to be possibly the depth of that, be their Achilles heel. Whether or not that holds true with Will Warren or if they bring in someone else, the Yankees are always capable of bringing someone else in. But right now the offense is massive, and that's typical Yankee style, and that team that fits well with their home field. Now at number 3, I have the top American League team up here, Texas Rangers. They've been off to a pretty blazing start. 3-0 against Tampa, 2-1 against Cincinnati, and 3-1 against Boston. So far, 6-1 against the American League East, which is a lot of points. You gotta get a lot of points there. Even though one of them maybe is Tampa, the weakest team in there. Rangers so far, Eovaldi has been Cy Young caliber. The offense is getting things done. Overall, this team is looking strong, looking like a strong team in what maybe might be the weakest division in the American League. So I think that does help them, especially when we're talking about a playoff push, rebounding from last year. Let's not forget, 2 years ago, World Series champions. This might be time for a little bit of a rebound. And at number 2, I think a lot of people might be shocked, but they are already dethroned from the top spot. I'm just going to put up number 1 at the same time just because they just played this weekend, so it kind of goes hand in hand. They get dethroned. They started the season sweeping the Cubs in Tokyo. They swept Detroit, which pretty impressive. And they also swept Atlanta, which maybe not so impressive. Then they go into Philly, and they lose 2 games out of 3. And today's was an 8-7 game, and it was back and forth. But the thing is here, the Dodgers, they did send out their 3 top of their rotation, the 3 top in this series, and they fell short. And when that happens, and you play a team like Philly, who also has not lost a series, and a team that I already had in the top 3, kind of got to give it to Philly at this point. Philly kind of took advantage of what possibly is the Dodgers' weakness, and that is that rotation depth. They brought in Glasnow, who got lit up today. Glasnow does have that history of injury, so if they do end up losing Glasnow, if you look at their depth chart, especially on Fangraphs, they only have 4 guys, and one of those is Glasnow. So if he goes down, what is this team going to do to fill up the void? Got a little bit of concerns there. Of course, the offense is constantly pumping on the Dodgers, and Teoscar Hernandez slotting in as a big signing extension, I guess, for that team. On the other side, Phillies piling in the runs. 2 games against Dodgers, looking good. A couple of those are low-scoring games. I think the other one they won was 3-1, and they lost 3-2. I can't recall off the top of my head. Swept Colorado, and they beat Washington 2-1. A couple of comebacks from behind. Last year, we saw Philly at the top of the board a couple of times. I always talked about concern about their strength of schedule. Maybe I could have been concerned about it too, because Colorado, Washington, not so impressive, but they beat the Dodgers. So on top of that, maybe the Dodgers bounce back real quick. Philly doesn't hold it very strong. It's very close. Could have went either way. Philly did have the home field advantage. And as you know, sometimes I don't think a 2-1 series win and when you're home is as impressive. But there you guys have it. 10 games into the season, the power rankings. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a comment below, and we will see you for that next video.